So this was probably one of the most missed type of question on your test from Friday. Some of you just plugged the square root of whatever the number was into your calculator and wrote down the decimal. There were some people, if the question was what's the square root of 128, they gave me the answer as the square root of 128, so they did nothing. But remember, for simplest radical form, you are doing a factor tree. So what two numbers multiply to 128? 16 and 8, okay. If you use something else, that's fine. And you're going to keep breaking it down. So 4 and 4, 2 and 2, 2 and 2, 4 and 2, 2 and 2. Okay. And then as people were taking the test, I got a lot of questions. Once you've broken down the number, you don't worry about it anymore. So all of these numbers here have been broken down, so you can ignore all of them. You're only looking at your prime numbers. And you're circling your pairs. Now, I could technically circle these ones here, if I wanted to. Okay, because they are a pair. They're 2s. For simplicity, I'm just going to circle those. But you can circle in any order that you want. Remember, your pairs come out, and then what's left over stays inside. So I have a pair of 2s, a pair of 2s, and a pair of 2s. And then left over is that 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. So you should have 8 radical 2 as your final answer. For number 2, again, you can choose whatever you want. I'm going to do 3 and 100. And then 100 breaks down to 4 and 25 or 10 and 10, whatever you want. And again, I'm looking for pairs. So I have a pair of 5s and a pair of 2s with this 3 left over. So 2 comes out, 5 comes out, 3 stays inside, giving you 10 radical 3 as your final answer. Yeah.
I started with 10 and 30.
That's fine.
And then it went, so 10 and 30, 10, it didn't work out.
What did you do for the 30?
I had 15 and 2.
Okay, so 2 and 15, and then 3 and 5. So I have a pair of 2s, and I have a pair of 5s, and then the 3 left over. So it doesn't matter how you break it down, you will get the exact same answer as long as you do your multiplication right. And again, the pairs do not have to be next to each other, so this is a really good example of when the pairs are not next to each other. These 2s are separate. That's okay, they're still a pair. These 5s are separate, but it's still a pair. Does that help you a little bit, hopefully? All right, last one. 72 breaks down to 8 and 9. And then 4 and 2, 2 and 2, 3 and 3. So I have a pair of 2s and a pair of 3s with a 2 left over. But before I actually rewrite it, I also have variables. What does a to the third mean? You have 3 a's. 1, 2, 3 of them. And you have 1 b. Do I have any pairs? I have a pair of a's. Okay, and the other ones don't. So everything that's circled comes out. So a 2, a 3, and an a. And then the leftovers stay inside. So a 2, an a, and a b. Final answer is 6a, square root of 2ab. So circle your pairs come out, the leftovers stay inside. So if you see these few questions on your retest, I guess, again on Thursday, are they ones you can answer now? Yeah, if you didn't get them right the first time, hopefully. Okay. Huh? You want to do another one? Yeah, what do you want to, with just a number or so how about, I don't know, I'm making this up, so I don't know what's going to happen. So if I take the square root of 115, What two numbers multiply to 115? 5 and what?
23.
Oh, dang it. Okay. I didn't pick a good one. 23 doesn't break down. 5 doesn't break down. So what does that mean? This is your final answer. Let me give you one that maybe works. How about 80? Okay, so 80 breaks down 40 and 2. Okay? And then 40 is 8 and 5. And then 4 and 2 and 2 and 2. This is a good one. So here's a really good example of the pairs not necessarily being next to each other. So I have a pair of 2s. Do I have any other pairs? I have another pair of 2s. And then I have this 5 left over. So this pair of 2 comes out, this pair of 2s comes out, and that 5 stays inside. So 4 square root of 5 would be your answer. If you want to check to make sure you're simplifying correctly, plug this original square root into your calculator and get a decimal. And then plug your answer into the calculator and you should get the exact same decimal. If you don't, you simplified it wrong. Okay, but that's a good check for yourself. Is that better? All right. So let's flip the page to 13. So that should be the right-hand side of your notebook. And the reason I had you simplify radicals is because we need to know how to simplify radicals for the distance formula. In IM1, you learned the distance formula. So in a second, I'm going to see if you remember it. But in IM1, once you got the square root, you plugged it into your calculator and got a decimal answer. In IM2, we're going to simplify it and leave it in radical form. Okay, that's the big difference. Does anyone remember what the distance formula is from... Okay, you can give it a shot.
E equals, in parentheses, dy2.
Y1.
Y1, yeah, Y1 minus Y2 plus X1 minus X. No, it's X2. X2 was first. No, it was X2. X2 was first. Yeah, keep going up.
Is that it?
No, it doesn't have no, and then it has no piercing.
Yeah, the exponent.
The what?
That's how Miss Miller taught it.
It was
It's
a
like
Oh.
it's a wrong start. It's a wrong start, and then the eyes, and then you gotta have the. They had the eye piercing. I don't see it.
All right, whatever. Okay, so here is the distance formula. So x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, and then you take the square root of that answer. Again, in IM1, you simplified and got a decimal. In IM2, we're going to simplify the square root, just like we did in the warm-up. Okay? Now, a big thing, and this is where I tend to see most students struggle, is they plug things in wrong and then get the wrong answer because you're adding the wrong information. So, if I give you the point 3, 8 and 8, negative 4, until we are pros, I would really like you to label your points. Yep, 3, 8 and 8, negative 4. 3, 8 and 8, negative 4. So I would really like you to label your points. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. If you have them labeled, it makes it easier when you're plugging it into the formula. Once you're super good at it, if you don't want to label, that's cool. Now, before I actually plug it in, what if I chose to label this set X1, Y1 and this set X2, Y2? Is that okay?
No.
Yes. It doesn't matter. It just has to be consistent. Tell them I'm sorry I took a water. Okay? All right, let's plug it in. D equals the square root of, so x2 is 8 minus x1 is 3, and I square that, plus y2 is negative 4 minus y1, which is 8, and I'm going to square that. Now I'm going to show you all the steps right now. Some of you will eventually be able to skip some of these steps. 8 minus 3? 5. So it's 5 squared plus negative 4 minus 8. Negative 12 squared. 5 squared is 25. And what's negative 12 squared?
144.
Positive 144. Yeah. Okay, so 25 and 144 is 169. So right now I have the square root of 169. The first thing that you should do is plug it into your calculator and see if it's a perfect square. Do you get a whole number or do you get a decimal? It is 13. You can get it off your brain as well. So if it's a whole number, you're good. If it's a decimal, that's where you have to do your factorization and circle your pairs. Okay? But I want you to write a note to yourself because, again, here is another issue that I see happen a lot. You will never have a negative number under the square root when solving for distance. You will never have a negative underneath the square root when you're solving for distance because at this time you don't know how to take the square root of a negative number. That's something we learn in IM2. Okay? And when we're talking about a distance, which is a length, can you have a negative length? No. Okay? Distance and length is always positive. So there will never be a negative underneath the square root. And if there is, you did something wrong and you should fix it. Not just erase the negative sign. Like actually go back and fix it. Okay. How about you try this one? Yeah. It'll be fun. Okay, so 2, 3, and 0, negative 8. I would like you to try that one. So, if you labeled, you have x1, y1, and x2, y2. When I plug it in, I have d equals the square root of 0 minus 2 squared plus negative 8 minus 3 squared. So far, so good? Okay. D equals the square root. 0 minus 2 is a negative 2 squared plus negative 8 minus 3 is a negative 11 squared. So you get 4 plus 121. You should have the square root of 125. You're going to plug it into your calculator and you're going to get a decimal. So you're going to take the factor tree of it. What two numbers multiply to 125? 5 and 25. And then 25 breaks down to 5 and 5. So I have a pair of 5s and then a 5 left on the inside. This is my final answer here. Are we okay with that? Okay.
Oh, he's just lying. That's cheating.
It's okay, you don't have to draw the graph. But what happens if I give you a graph?
Where'd you get that?
I don't know. Okay, so you don't have to draw the graph, but if I give you a graph and I ask you to find the distance or the length of that line segment, can you do it? Yeah. What would be the first thing you would need to do?
Find the coordinates.
Great. Can you see from where you're at what the coordinate of this is?
It looks like it's right in between 1 and 2 on the x-axis.
Okay. Well, it's -2, -3. And then this coordinate down here happens to be 5, negative 5. Now I want you to solve this one, but I want you to be very careful when you plug it in. So take a second and solve this problem as well. Points should be 2, negative 2, 3, my bad, and 5, negative 5. Now I was asked multiple times, does it matter which one's the ones and the twos? Absolutely not. You just have to make sure that both the ones are in one set and the twos are in the other set. So x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay? If you flipped them, that's okay. All right, so d equals the square root of 5 minus a negative 2 should be 5 plus 2 squared. Did you get that?
Yes.
Good. Plus negative 5 minus 3 squared. Okay, 5 plus 2 is 7 squared, plus negative 5 minus 3 is negative 8 squared. 7 squared, negative 8 squared. And when you add those two together, you get the square root of 113. Okay, so in your calculator, you plug it in, and you notice it's a decimal. So then you think, okay, is there any number that multiplies to 113?
No.
No, which means this is your final answer. If you can't simplify it, you leave it as is. I read the point wrong, and so it was always up there as negative 2, 3, but I read it as negative 2, negative 3, apparently.
You did?
Apparently.
They're just making excuses.
I know, just all these excuses. All right, any questions, comments, or concerns?
No, ma'am.